I sit in my old chair by the window, looking out at the street through the curtains Martha hung 20 years ago. She'd said then that the color blue calmed the nerves. Maybe it does, but my nerves aren't the same as they were when I was married. Martha could find the right words to say when Clive was a kid, when he brought home another D from school or broke a neighbor's window with a ball. And I only got angry and shouted, thinking that strictness would educate the boy. Now I realize how wrong I was. Clive is now 38, and I'm still trying to bring him up, only now not by yelling, but by money, as if bills could replace the hugs I didn't give him when he was a boy. It's funny to even think about it, but I keep sending him $500 every month, sometimes more when he calls asking for help with car repairs or to pay for some unexpected expense. I was talking to my neighbor Ralph yesterday, and he was telling me how his daughter comes every weekend, helps around the house, cooks dinner. I have Clive once a month, and that's when I need the money. He comes with his Evelyn, they sit in the kitchen, drink the coffee I brew, eat the cookies I buy, and then Clive just casually starts talking about how they need to replace the roof or that Evelyn's birthday is coming up. Evelyn's a good girl, I don't disagree. She's pretty, she's educated, she's an elementary school teacher. But she looks at me like I'm obligated to help them. She doesn't ask me directly. No, she's smarter than that. Just talks about the problems, sighs, shakes her head. And Clive sits next to her and says, yes, it's hard on a young family, especially when you want to have kids and you can barely afford it. They've been wanting kids for 8 years. They still can't make up their minds. The apartment is small, the job is unstable. They find some other reasons. And I'm still waiting to become a grandfather, still hoping that grandchildren will change our relationship, make it warmer. Silly old man, really. I remember when Clive was at school. He was a bright boy, but lazy. He did his homework, and I used to tell him, study harder, son. You can't get anywhere in life without an education. He just shrugged his shoulders and ran off to his friends to play soccer. After high school, he went to college to study economics, but didn't finish. Dropped out in the 3rd year, said he found a job at a car dealership. A good job, he added, like he was trying to convince me. He still works there, selling cars, says he's got a talent for sales, that the customers trust him. Maybe so, but his paycheck isn't very big, judging by how often he asks for help. Or maybe he's just used to living beyond his means, like a lot of young people these days. I worked all my life as a mechanic in a factory. My hands were greasy, my back hurt every night. But I brought home my paycheck faithfully and supported my family. Martha didn't work until Clive was a baby. Then she got a job as a clerk in a fabric store. We were never rich, but we were never destitute. We saved a little, bought only what we really needed. Clive and Evelyn live differently. They have a bigger house than our old one, a newer car, more expensive clothes, but they're always short of money. It's weird arithmetic. I guess I spoiled them in some way. I helped them too often when they first got married. It seemed like the right thing to do to support a young family. Martha was still alive, and she, too, thought we should help the kids get back on their feet. We gave them money for a down payment on a house. I helped Clive get a loan, vouched for him. I thought it was temporary, that in a couple of years they'd be able to manage on their own. But as the years passed, helping became a habit. At first I helped with the loan payments when Clive was having difficulties at work. Then I started transferring money regularly so they could save for the future. Now I realize that they have no savings. All the money is spent on current expenses. On the table next to the chair are bank statements for the last 6 months. I look at them regularly, keeping track of my expenses, as Martha taught me. The numbers are telling. In 6 months, I've transferred almost $4,000 to Clive, not counting the $1,200 I paid to repair their air conditioner in July and the $800 for new tires for Evelyn. To be honest, it's starting to hit my budget. My pension isn't bad, plus the savings Martha and I have made all our lives. But I'm a human being. I have my expenses. My house needs repairs. My car is old and breaks down a lot. Medicines get more expensive every year, and, my health isn't getting any younger. Dr. Wilson recently told me I need knee surgery. The arthritis is advanced, and without surgery, it's only going to get worse. Insurance will cover most of the cost, but I'll have to pay something out of my own pocket. 3 or 4,000, the doctor said. Maybe more, depending on the complexity of the surgery. I thought then that I could ask Clive to help. Not with money, of course. He can barely make ends meet, judging by his stories. But at least moral support, coming to the hospital, helping around the house during the recovery period. Only then I decided not to tell him about the operation. Why should young people go to so much trouble? They have their own lives, their own worries. I look at the pictures on the wall opposite the chair. There's Clive in kindergarten, in his funny New Year's Eve costume. And here he is at his high school graduation, serious, grown up, diploma in hand. Here's his and Evelyn's wedding, me leading my daughter-in-law by the hand because her father died a year before the wedding. I remember that day well. Evelyn was crying as we rehearsed the ceremony, saying her daddy should have led her down the aisle. And I stood beside her, awkward, not knowing what to say. Clive asked me to fill in for her dad, and I agreed, of course. I wanted to help the girl, to make her day special. After the wedding, Evelyn called me regularly for a few months, telling me about work, asking for advice on running the household. I thought then that we would develop a warm relationship, that she would become like a daughter to me. But gradually the calls became less frequent, and then stopped altogether. Now we only talk to each other when they come for money. Maybe it's my own fault. Maybe I helped too much financially and took too little interest in their lives. It's easier to write a check than to find out what's on their minds, what their dreams are, what their fears are. Money replaced talking. Transfers became the only way to express care. Sometimes I think Clive just doesn't know how to communicate with me. He and I have never been close, never had a heart-to-heart. I worked hard, I was tired, I came home at night and all I wanted was silence. And he grew up with Marta, she was his mother and father at the same time. I provided for the family financially and she did everything else. When Martha got cancer, Clive came to the hospital every day. He sat by her side, talking to her, reading aloud the books she loved. And I spent more time at home, cooking meals to bring to the hospital, dealing with insurance paperwork, dealing with practical matters. After she died, Clive and I didn't know what to say to each other. Everyone's grief was different, personal. He had lost a mother who understood and supported him. I lost my wife, who was the center of our family, the link between me and my son. That's when the regular remittances started. At first, I wanted to help him with funeral expenses. Then I decided that a young family needed support. Money became my way of saying, I love you, I care about you, I want you to do well. Except Clive seemed to see it differently. For him, transfers have become something taken for granted, like utility bills or paychecks. He waits for them, plans for them, includes them in his family budget. And when the money is delayed, he calls with concern in his voice. A month ago, I had problems with the bank. The transfer was delayed for a week because of some technical problems. Clive called every day asking what happened, when the money would arrive. He said that they had expenses planned, that they were counting on my help. That's when I first thought, what if I stopped helping them? What would change in our relationship? Would Clive call just to see how Dad was doing? Or would our communication stop completely? The phone rang, interrupting my musings. Clive's name popped up on the display. He called in the evenings, usually after dinner, when he had free time to talk to his old dad. Hi, Dad. His voice was cheerful, too cheerful. How you doing? How are you feeling? I'm fine, I said. I'm still alive, I can't complain. That's great. Listen, I got some news. Evelyn and I decided to go to Lake Rehoboth for a couple weeks. We rented a cabin right by the water. We're gonna relax, sunbathe, fish. The weather's supposed to be great. I know Lake Rehoboth. It's a beautiful place. Martha and I used to vacation there when Clive was a teenager. We had a regular motel room, cooked on our own, saved money. But it was a wonderful time. We walked a lot, talked and laughed. Martha collected shells on the beach, and I tried to catch a single fish. Sextum, good idea, I said to my son. A vacation is good, especially for Evelyn after the school year. The kids must have worn her out over the winter. Yeah, she was tired. That's why we decided to take a vacation. We just want to relax, take our time, enjoy nature. There's something else in his voice, some uncertainty. It's like he wants to add something, but he doesn't dare. I wait, not rushing him. I know my son well enough to know when he's not telling me something. Look, Dad, he finally says, we thought we needed some time alone. You know, married couple, romance, all that. So we decided to go, just me and Evelyn. My heart twinged, but I tried not to show disappointment. Of course, young people need time to themselves. It's natural. He'd always asked me to join them on their trips before, though. I usually declined, though, not wanting to get in their way, not wanting to be a burden. I understand, I replied. Have a good rest, gain strength. Thank you for understanding. I knew you'd understand. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll definitely come back and tell you how we did. He didn't ask about the money directly, but I got the hint. Usually in such cases, I'd say something like, do you need help with the expenses? And Clive would be relieved to accept the offer. Today, I didn't say anything. Well, I'm off, he said after an awkward pause. Evelyn's making dinner, calling me to the table. Take care of yourself, Dad. You take care too, I said. After he hung up, I sat in my chair for a long time, staring out the window. It was getting dark outside. The streetlights were on. Neighbors were returning from work, parking their cars, bringing bags of groceries into their homes. An ordinary evening in an ordinary neighborhood in an ordinary city. And I thought about the fact that Clive hadn't even asked me to go with them. He used to always ask if I wanted to keep them company. And even though I'd said no, it made me feel good that he was remembering me, thinking about including my father in his plans. Today, he just put me on the spot. The two of them are traveling together, and I don't belong there. It's like I'm not a family member, but some distant relative who needs to be kept on polite terms with, but nothing more. And he didn't ask for money for the trip. That's the first time in years. Maybe he'd finally learned to rely on his own resources, or maybe he just didn't dare ask for it directly, hoping I'd offer. I get up from the chair and go to the kitchen to make tea. The house is quiet, only the clock on the wall ticking and the refrigerator humming. It had always been this quiet, back in Martha's day. We were not a talkative family, preferring silent understanding to loud words. Maybe that was our mistake. Maybe we should have talked to each other more, shared our thoughts and feelings. Then and now it would have been easier for us to find common ground. The next day after lunch, Clive called again. I had just finished washing the dishes and was about to lie down on the sofa and read the newspaper. I'd been feeling sleepy after meals lately. Age was taking its toll. But my son's call cheered me up. I was even glad that he decided to talk to me again. Dad, hi. His voice sounded energetic, businesslike. I have a few minutes. I wanted to clarify something about our trip. I'm listening to you, son. Fun. Well, Evelyn and I have finalized everything. We're leaving Saturday morning. The cabin is Saturday through Sunday in 2 weeks. 14 days in the country. Can you imagine? We haven't had a vacation that long in a long time. I listened to him and thought he sounded like a travel agent advertising a vacation. There was enthusiasm in his voice, but it was fake, as if he was trying to convince not only me, but also himself of what a wonderful time they were going to have. It's good to have found a house for such a long time, I said. It's not easy in season. Yes, we were lucky. The landlady wanted to rent it for a week, but we agreed. We had to pay extra, but it was worth it. Evelyn was looking forward to a long vacation by the water. Clive was silent, and I sensed that he was gathering his thoughts before he said something important. It was the kind of pause he'd had as a child when he was preparing to confess something he'd done or ask permission for something he wasn't sure about. Dad, I wasn't very clear yesterday, he began at last. I want to explain the travel situation in more detail. Yes? I sat down in the chair and put the newspaper on my lap. You see, the cabin is designed for only 2 people. There's 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, and a living room. It's very cozy, but it's cramped. It's fine for a romantic vacation, but if you add a third person, it will be uncomfortable for everyone. He spoke quickly as if he had rehearsed this speech beforehand. The words flowed smoothly, but they felt artificial, strained. I knew he was trying to explain to me why I wasn't invited, but he was doing it so awkwardly that it was even more painful. Besides, Clive continued, Evelyn and I have wanted to be alone for a long time. We have such an active social life, always someone visiting, traveling, going out with friends. And when you can just relax, just the 2 of us, without the extra eyes? Eyes. So they don't need me. Not a father and father-in-law, not a member of the family, but a nuisance to get rid of in order to have a good rest. It was bitter to hear such words, but I tried not to show it. Of course I understand, I replied in a steady voice. A young family really needs time alone. Exactly, Clive was relieved. I knew you'd understand. You were once a young married man yourself. Do you remember when you and your mother used to go on vacations? Just the two of you? I remember, of course, but it was different then. Martha and I did sometimes leave little Clive with her mother and go away for the weekend. But it was rare, maybe once a year, and only lasted a couple of days. Most importantly, we never explained our trips by wanting to get rid of the baby. We just said that adults needed a vacation too. Your mother, by the way, was the one who insisted that we be alone sometimes, I said. She said it was important for spouses to maintain a romantic relationship. She did. She was a smart woman. Evelyn thinks so too. She generally thinks a lot about the psychology of relationships, reads special literature. She says that modern couples often forget about each other because of external circumstances. I wonder what external circumstances Evelyn considers me to be. To work, domestic problems, or relatives? Probably the latter. To them, I'm an external circumstance that interferes with their happiness. Evelyn's right, I agreed. Relationships need to be nurtured and nurtured. Yes, she's very wise. That's why we decided to spend these 2 weeks, just the two of us. No cell phones, no errands, no strangers, outsider. That's another word that stabbed me in the heart. I'm a stranger to my own son. Not close, not dear, not someone you want to share the joy of vacation with. An outsider. Good program, I said. I hope the weather will be favorable. The forecast says sunshine for all 2 weeks. Evelyn has already bought new swimsuits, sunscreen, books to read, and I've checked my fishing rods, got my tackle ready. I'll be fishing from morning till night. He spoke with such enthusiasm, like a child who got a long-awaited toy, and I could see that the enthusiasm was genuine. Clive is really excited about the upcoming trip, anticipating a vacation. Only his joy is overshadowed by the need to explain to his father why he was not invited. The fish bite well there, I said. Sonor, my mom and I used to make good catches in those places. Yeah, I remember. You told me about that huge bass you caught. Mom bragged about your catch to the neighbors for a week. Martha was really proud of my fishing successes, though she preferred just sitting on the shore with a book or picking berries in the woods. She said fishing calmed me down, made me more patient and balanced. Maybe it did. Fine, Mom has always been supportive of my hobbies, I said. Evelyn is supportive too. She doesn't like fishing, but she understands that I enjoy it. She'll sunbathe while I fish, or walking along the shore, taking pictures of nature. She has a good camera and takes beautiful pictures. Clive talked about his vacation plans, but I could hear a note of awkwardness in his voice. He realized that the more he admired the upcoming trip, the more obvious my exclusion from it became. But he couldn't stop, and the words just flowed out. We also want to do a lot of hiking, he continued. There are forest trails nearby, and we can walk to the waterfall. Evelyn wants to see the waterfall, and she says it's beautiful. It is, I said. My mom and I went there. But the path is quite steep. You have to be careful. We're young, we can manage, Clive laughed. But for you, Dad, hiking like that might be a bit hard on you. You've got a problem with your knees. There it is. At last he said what he probably really thought. I'm old, I'm sick, I can't hike the mountain trails. I'd be a burden. Why take an infirm old man who will complain of fatigue and spoil the mood of the young? My knees do hurt, I agreed. Age is taking its toll. Exactly, that's why it's better when everyone rests as he feels comfortable. You at home quietly sit at home, watch TV, talk to neighbors, and we'll run in the woods, climb rocks. He said it like he was doing me a favor. Like he was offering me a more attractive alternative, staying home alone instead of going to the beautiful lake. TV and neighbors versus nature, and family togetherness. Of course, I said, everyone has their own preferences. That's great. That means everyone is happy. We'll have a good vacation, and you'll have a good time at home. And when we come back, we'll tell you everything in detail, show you pictures. Pictures? They will show me pictures of their happy vacation from which I was expelled. They'll tell me how great they had a great time without me, and I will smile, be happy for them, praise the successful pictures. I'll be waiting for your story, I said. Great. Well, I'm off. I've got a lot to do before I leave. Packing, grocery shopping, checking the car. I don't want anything to spoil the vacation. Good luck packing. I wished. Thank you. And you take care of yourself, okay? Don't work too hard, rest more. We'll be back soon and we'll come and see you. After Clive hung up, I sat silent for a long time, looking at the phone. The conversation had left an unpleasant residue in my soul. It wasn't that I really wanted to go to the lake with them. At my age, traveling really isn't easy. But it hurt how easily and naturally my son had excluded me from his plans. In the past, when Martha was alive, we always discussed family trips all together. Even if I couldn't go because of work or health, I was asked if I would like to join. My opinion was taken into account, I was consulted. Now Clive just makes me aware of his decisions. He doesn't invite me. He doesn't ask for advice. He doesn't even ask me about my plans for the time they are away. To him, I'm just an elderly relative who should be visited occasionally and given basic news as a courtesy. I got up from the chair and walked to the kitchen, pouring myself some water. My throat was dry from the unpleasant conversation. Clive was trying to be tactful, of course, but his explanation sounded even more painful than a direct rejection. It would have been better if he'd said honestly, "Dad, we want to go without you, without all this talk about the cramped cabin and the need for romantic privacy." I went back into the living room and sat back in my chair. There was a newspaper on the table that I'd never gotten around to reading. I unfolded it, tried to focus on the news, but my thoughts kept returning to the conversation with my son. The thing that hurt me most was the way Clive had talked about my health. Yes, my knees hurt. Yes, walking up and down the mountains had become more difficult. But I'm not an invalid, not a frail old man who can't take a step without help. I can still drive a car, go to the store, do household chores. Most importantly, they didn't even offer me the option to choose for myself. They didn't ask if I was ready for the difficulty of the hike, if I wanted to try it. They just decided for me that it would be hard for me and ruled me out of the plans, as if I wasn't an adult capable of assessing my own strength and making my own decision. Maybe it's not about my health at all. Maybe they just don't want to spend time with me. Maybe I've become a boring, uninteresting conversationalist for them. What am I supposed to talk to them about? About the job at the car dealership that I don't understand? About their friends I don't know? About plans to have kids that they've been discussing for 8 years? What can I tell them? About their ailments? About neighbors they've seen a couple of times? About home repairs that don't concern them? It's true we live in different worlds. We have little in common, but it used to be different. When Clive was little, we used to go fishing together. I taught him how to cast a rod, told him what bait to use for which fish. He listened attentively, asked questions, and rejoiced at every fish he caught. Then he grew up, his interests changed. Soccer, girls, friends became more important than fishing. It's natural, it happens to all kids. But somehow I thought that when he became an adult, his interest in communicating with his father would return, that we would find new points of contact, topics for conversation. That didn't happen. We remained strangers to each other, connected only by blood kinship and money transfers. Or maybe we didn't just stay strangers, we became strangers. Maybe with Marta's death, we finally lost what we had in common. Marta was our translator. She understood both Clive and me. She could find a common language with everyone. When we all sat down to dinner together, she asked questions, guided the conversation, created an atmosphere of family warmth. Without her, we were like two people speaking different languages. Now our conversations are reduced to formal exchanges of news and requests for financial assistance. Clive talks about work in general terms. I ask about Evelyn's health. We avoid serious topics. We don't share our worries. We don't discuss plans for the future. And today's conversation showed that even formal politeness is difficult for him. He called not because he wanted to talk to my father, but because he felt it was his duty to explain why I was not taking the trip. And the explanation sounded like the excuses of a man who feels guilty but isn't ready to change anything. I wonder how he would have acted if I had asked him to take me along. Would he make up new excuses, or would he honestly admit that he didn't want my company? He'd probably agree out of politeness, but the vacation would be ruined for everyone. Better this way. Better to know the truth than to be deceived about my place in their lives. I'm Clive and Evelyn's financial support, nothing more. Does that feel good? No. But honestly, I picked up the paper, tried to concentrate on reading, an article about gasoline prices going up, a story about the mayoral election in a neighboring town, A week's worth of weather, the usual news of an ordinary day. But I found it hard to concentrate on the text. My thoughts kept returning to the conversation. Clive said they were traveling on Saturday, so they have a few more days to pack. I wonder if he'll call me again before he leaves, or only when he gets back to tell me how the vacation went. He used to always call before trips, asking if there was anything I needed to bring, if I wanted to give something to people I knew, if there were any in their vacation destination. Little things, but nice. They showed that the son thinks about his father, includes him in his plans, at least formally. Now that's gone. I find out about their plans after the fact, like a stranger being politely told the news. To Clive, I've become part of the past, a memory, not part of the present or the future. Maybe it was time to accept that. Maybe it's time to stop expecting from him what he's not prepared to give. Maybe I should structure my life so that it doesn't depend on his calls, visits, and attention. But how do you do that at 72? How do you find new friends, new interests, new meaning in life? All my peers are either dead, sick, or sitting at home complaining about youth. The neighbors are friendly, but we are not close. No job, no hobbies developed. Only TV, newspapers, rare trips to the store, and monthly remittances to my son remained. The boring, empty life of a lonely old man. And Clive realizes this, which is why he has no qualms about excluding me from his plans. TV and neighbors are my alternative to their happy family vacation. And the bitter part is that there's some truth to it. That night I couldn't sleep for a long time. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling and thinking about my conversation with Clive. Outside the window, the wind rumbled, a tree branch snapped, and a car drove by. The usual sounds of the city at night that I'd grown accustomed to over the many years I'd lived in this house. I got up, turned on the nightlight, and walked into the study. There on the desk was a stack of file folders, bank statements, receipts, checkbooks, all my financial life neatly organized. Martha had taught me order, and I still kept track of every dollar, every expense. I pulled out a folder labeled Clive and opened it. Over the past 5 years, I had gathered here all the documents related to helping my son. Transfers, checks, records of cash I'd given him. Numbers, numbers, numbers. Cold, dispassionate, but eloquent. The first entry is dated January 23rd, 2020. That's when I wired Clive $1,000 for heating repairs. He called on a winter evening, voice troubled. The boiler's broken. The house is cold. Evelyn has a cold. It's an emergency, and I'm short a paycheck. I didn't hesitate for a second. My son asked for help, so I had to help. The next day I went to the bank and made a transfer. Clive called me in the evening, thanking me, promising to return the money in a month. I said I was in no hurry. The main thing was to keep them warm and well. He never returned the money. A month later, he called again for a different reason. It's Evelyn's birthday and I want to give her a nice party, but I'm on a tight budget. Can Daddy help with a present? $500 would be enough, no more. I wired the money again, and again he promised to pay me back when he had the chance, and again it never came. Gradually, the talk of repayment stopped altogether. Help began to be taken for granted as something natural and obligatory. I turned the pages, looked at the records, counted the sums. In 5 years, I had transferred over $30,000 to Clive. $30,000, more than my annual pension. If someone had told me before that I was spending that much money on my grown son, I wouldn't have believed it. But the numbers don't lie. Here's a wire transfer for Evelyn's car insurance. $800. Here's a check for roof repair. $500. Another wire transfer. $500 for a new washing machine. And another and another and another. Some of the amounts are very small. $100 for groceries. $200 for medicine for Evelyn when she had the flu. $50 for gas when Clive drove to a job interview in another city. Small things, but they add up to a decent amount of money. And then there's the regular monthly remittances. They started 2 years ago when Clive was having problems at work. New manager, conflicts with colleagues, threat of dismissal, salaries were being withheld, the family budget was struggling. I offered to help out every month until things stabilized. The situation stabilized and the transfers continued. Clive explained that they were used to a certain standard of living and that a drastic reduction in income would hit their plans. I agreed to continue the assistance for another 6 months, then another 6 months. Then I stopped setting specific deadlines. $500 every 15th of the month. An automatic transfer I set up at the bank for convenience. The money goes out on its own, without my involvement, like a utility bill or an insurance premium. Convenient, practical. I don't have to remember and do the transaction manually every time. But when I look at those numbers now, at night in the silence of my office, I feel uneasy. $6,000 a year in regular transfers alone, plus one-time help that happens every 2 or 3 months, plus gifts for birthdays, New Year's Eve, wedding anniversaries. I spend more on Clive than I do on myself. My pension is $2,400 a month. Of these, 500 immediately go to my son, another 300, 400 on average, on one-time help. That leaves 1,500 for my own needs. Food, medicine, utilities, gasoline, clothes, repairs to the house and car. It turns out that I live more modestly than I could to provide my son with comfort. I buy cheap groceries, save on heating in the winter, put off repairs that are long overdue, and Clive and Evelyn rent expensive lake houses for 2 weeks. I used to think that was normal. Parents should help their children, especially in times of need. I myself got help from my parents when Martha and I were just starting out. True, the help was modest. My father worked as a simple locksmith. There was no big money in the family. But the help was temporary and purposeful. Dad gave us money for the wedding, then helped us with the down payment for the apartment. All honestly, openly, with a clear understanding that these were exceptional circumstances. And I knew I had to pay the money back as soon as I got back on my feet. I paid it back after 3 years. I set aside a little bit each month. I refused to spend too much, but I honored my commitment. And when my parents got old, I helped them myself. I bought medicines, paid for utilities, did minor repairs in their apartment, but it was mutual support. First they helped me, then I helped them. The natural course of things, a fair exchange between generations. And what happens now? I give, and Clive just takes. And he doesn't just take, he takes my help for granted. When was the last time he asked about my business? Not just formally at the beginning of a conversation, but genuinely. When did he ask about my health, my financial situation, my plans? I can't remember such a conversation, but I remember very well all his requests for help. They've become so commonplace that I'm no longer surprised by the new expenses. Evelyn's car needs work? Sure, Daddy will help. Their air conditioner's broken? Of course, the old man will pay for it. They want a vacation at the lake? Of course they'll give money. But why has it become natural? Why should I pay for their entertainment and comfort? Clive works, Evelyn works. They have two incomes, I have one. They're young, they're healthy, they've got their whole lives ahead of them. And I'm a pensioner with bad knees and mounting medical expenses. Logically, it seems absurd, but emotionally, it's hard for me to say no to my son. Every time he calls with a request, I feel obligated to help, not because I'm afraid of his reaction, but because I want to be a good father. A good father supports his children. A good father doesn't refuse help when it's needed. A good father is willing to sacrifice his own interests for the well-being of his family. I learned these principles as a child, and they have become part of my character. But where is the line between supporting and condoning? When does help stop being a temporary measure and turn into a permanent dependence? At what point does a caring father become a source of easy money for his adult children? I closed the folder, got up from the table, went to the window. It was dark outside, only the streetlights were burning. In the house across the street, someone was still awake. The bluish light of the TV was shining in one window. Probably an old man, too, who couldn't sleep, watching night programs. Or maybe a young family. The husband and wife are sitting on the couch, cuddled up, watching a movie or a TV series. Planning tomorrow, discussing weekend plans, dreaming of the future. That's what Martha and I used to do. That's how Clive and Evelyn should be. But instead, they're used to relying on my help. They plan their budget with my transfers in mind. They make decisions about big purchases, knowing that Daddy will help if their own money isn't enough. I became part of their financial system, an unofficial sponsor of their lifestyle. And I was fine with that. Until today. Until the conversation about the trip that finally clarified my position in their lives. They need me as an ATM machine, not as a family member. Money, yes. Companionship, no. Financial support, always welcome. Emotional intimacy, sorry, getting in the way. Clive didn't even ask for money for this trip. Why? Because he's embarrassed, or because he knows I'll give it to him if he's transparent enough. He talked about the expensive house, about paying the landlady extra, about how Evelyn dreamed of a long vacation. All this sounded like preparation for a request, but there was no request. Maybe he expects me to offer to help, like I've done before. Maybe he thinks it's easier to get the money without humiliating requests. Just tell him what the problem is and wait for the good daddy to realize that he needs help. That's exactly what I used to do. I would hear a story about a financial hardship and immediately offer a solution. I thought I was being delicate, saving my son from the awkwardness of direct requests. Now I realize that I was just teaching him that money can be obtained without much effort. It is enough to call dad, complain about life, hint at the problems, and the solution will be found by itself. A convenient scheme for the recipient, but humiliating for the giver. It turns out that my generosity is devalued, perceived as something automatic and thoughtless. I returned to my desk and opened another folder. It contained documents on my own finances, pension accruals, bank accounts, investments I had made before I retired. The picture here was not so rosy. For the past 2 years, my expenses had exceeded my income. I had been spending my savings to maintain my usual standard of living and to help Clive. Not critical, but worrying. If this continues, in 10 years' time, I'll have very little money left. What if I need serious medical services? What if I have to go into hospital for long-term treatment? What if a caregiver or nursing home is needed? Insurance will cover the basic costs, but the extra spending could be significant. Clive doesn't think about that. For him, dad is an endless source of money that never runs out. It doesn't occur to him that my resources are limited, that I could be left destitute. He lives for today and doesn't worry about my future. What's more, he's apparently counting on an inheritance. The house, the car, the savings. It will all go to him someday. Why save and save when you can get ready-made wealth? Why refuse his father's help if it doesn't affect future income? But what if there is no inheritance? What if I spend all the money on my own needs? What if I sell the house and move to a smaller apartment? What if I leave my savings to charity? How would a loving son react then? I tried to imagine the situation. I tell Clive that I can no longer help him because the money's not enough for my own expenses. What would he say? Would he offer to support me? Will he visit more often, take an interest in my problems? Or will he just disappear from my life? Will he stop calling, visiting, socializing? Will he find excuses why he can't help my elderly father? Work, family matters, his own financial difficulties. You can think of many reasons. That's probably what's going to happen. Because our relationship has long been built on unequal exchange. I give him money. He makes me feel like the father I need. I pay for the illusion of family closeness. He gets financial support for minimal communication. Is this a fair trade? Does it benefit me? I used to think it was. Better this relationship with my son than no relationship at all. Better infrequent calls and visits for money than complete loneliness. At least I felt useful, important to someone. Now I question that choice. A relationship built on money cannot be sincere. Love that must be bought ceases to be love. Care paid for by transfers becomes a commercial service. Maybe it's time to change the rules of the game. Maybe we should see what's left of our relationship without the financial component. Perhaps Clive will be surprised, but will find the strength to build a relationship with his father on new principles. Or maybe he'll just walk away. Decide he doesn't need a useless old man. Find other sources of income, or learn to live within his means. Either way, it's fair. At least I'll know the truth about what I mean to my son. I looked at my watch. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Dawn is coming and I still haven't slept a wink. But the sleeplessness had been useful. I'd learned a lot about myself, about Clive, about our relationship. Things I probably should have realized a lot sooner. I woke up at 7 in the morning, though I hadn't gone to bed until 5. I hadn't gotten much sleep, but I felt alert and determined. The night's reflections had cleared up a lot of things, and now I knew exactly what I had to do. For the first time in a long time, I had a clear plan of action. After a shower and breakfast, I dressed in my best suit, The dark blue one Martha had bought me for our silver wedding. She'd said then that it made me look solid and confident. I needed that kind of confidence today. I grabbed my briefcase and put all the necessary documents and my passport in it. Bank statements, account numbers, house deeds, anything I might need to have a serious conversation with the bank tellers. I was about to change my financial life, and I needed to prepare for it thoroughly. The bank was a 10-minute drive from my house. I got there by 9 a.m. when there wasn't a long line. I wanted to solve all the issues calmly, without hurry, thinking over each action. The bank lobby was cool and quiet. A few customers sat in leather chairs waiting their turn. The young girl behind the information desk smiled at me and asked how she could help. "I need to speak to a personal account manager," I said. "I have a few questions about financial management." "I sit on a roof firm." "Sure, I'll see who's available now." She dialed a number, spoke to someone on the phone. "Mr. Grayson will be able to see you in 15 minutes. Please make yourself comfortable." I sat down in a chair near the window and watched the morning life of the city. People were hurrying to work. Students were walking to college with backpacks over their shoulders. Young mothers were carrying their children in strollers. Everyone was in a hurry. Everyone had their own things to do, their own worries. And I had only one important thing to do today: to put my financial relationship with my son in order. This decision was not easy for me, but night reflections convinced me of its correctness. You can't live with illusions all your life. You have to face the truth. "Mr. Blackwell?" A young man in a suit approached me with his hand outstretched. "I'm David Grayson, personal manager. Please come into my office." The office was small but cozy. A wooden desk, 2 chairs for clients, bookshelves with folders and reference books. On the wall hung a diploma of education and several awards of the bank for quality customer service. "Tea, coffee?" Mr. Grayson offered, taking a seat at the table. "Thank you, I'm fine." I opened my briefcase and took out some documents. "Also, I have several accounts with your bank, and I would like to make a change in their management." "Great, let's figure it out." He turned on the computer, typed something on the keyboard. "I can see your accounts. A checking account, a savings account, and a joint account with Mr. Clive Blackwell. Is that your son?" "Yes, he is." I nodded. "It is with this joint account that I have questions." "I'm listening to you carefully." I took a deep breath. It was harder to say the words than I thought, but there was nowhere to go. The decision has been made, and we need to follow through. "I want to close this joint account," I said firmly, "and transfer all the funds to my personal account." Mr. Grayson looked at the computer screen, checked something, then looked up at me. "That's possible, of course, but I need to clarify. Does Mr. Clive Blackwell agree to the closing of the account?" "According to our rules, closing a joint account requires the consent of all the owners." "What if one of the owners simply withdraws from joint ownership?" I asked. "Leaving the account to the second owner?" "That's also possible. Do you want to transfer the rights to the account entirely to your son?" I thought for a few seconds. Give Clive an empty account or an account with a minimum amount? That would be symbolic, but not very practical. I'd rather close it all together and avoid any more questions. "No, I want to close the account." "My son agrees, we've discussed it," I lied. "It's just that he's on vacation now. He can't come in person." "I see. Then we'll need written consent from Mr. Clive. You could ask him to email or fax us a signed statement." That made it difficult. I didn't want to discuss closing the account with Clive before I'd made a final decision on all the changes. And calling him and asking him to send an approval meant revealing my plans prematurely. "What if I just quit the joint ownership?" I asked again. "Transfer my share of the money to a personal account and leave Clive as sole owner?" "You can do that right now. As a co-owner, you are allowed to withdraw your funds and leave the co-ownership unilaterally. The account will then automatically become your son's personal account." That's a good one. "I'll take my money and Clive will be notified of the change by post. By the time he gets back from vacation and tries to sort things out, I'll have made all the other decisions." "Let's do that," I said. "Shabram, how much money is in the joint account now?" Mr. Grayson looked at the screen. $2,437.16. So Clive hadn't withdrawn the money for the trip yet. Maybe he planned to do it later, or maybe he was counting on my help. In any case, I deposited the money myself last month when Clive complained about not having enough money before payday. Shakanim, put the whole amount into my personal savings account, I said. Good. Would you please fill in the application form for withdrawal from joint ownership? I filled out the form, signed, showed my passport. The procedure took about 10 minutes. Mr. Grayson checked everything, entered the data into the computer, printed out a certificate of money transfer. It's done, he said. The funds have been transferred to your savings account. Mr. Clive will be notified of the change by mail within 2 or 3 days. Great. I put the certificate away in my briefcase. Now, I have one more request. I need to cancel all automatic transfers from my accounts. Automatic transfers? Mr. Grayson looked at the computer again. Yes, I can see that. You have a monthly transfer of $500 to Mr. Clive Blackwell's account set up. Every 15th day. That's exactly what you need to cancel. Reason for canceling? A change in the financial situation, I said evasively. There is no longer a need for regular transfers. Mr. Grayson nodded and began entering the changes into the system. I watched his actions and felt strangely relieved. I'm finally doing what I should have done a long time ago. Taking control of my finances. Confirm. The transfer has been canceled, the manager informed me a few minutes later. The next transfer on the 15th will not take place. Is it possible to set up notifications? I asked. So that I get notifications about all attempts to withdraw money from my accounts? Sure. SMS notifications or email? Both, if possible. He set up additional security, explained how the notification system worked, and gave me new passwords for online banking. I carefully wrote all the information down in a notebook. Are there any other automatic payments associated with Mr. Clive? I asked. Mr. Grayson checked the transaction history for the last year. I see that you have paid bills on his behalf several times. Insurance, utilities, a loan payment. But those were one-time transactions, not automatic. A loan payment. I forgot about Clive's mortgage. 2 years ago, he was having trouble making his payments, and I agreed to help. At first, it was a one-off, then it became a regular practice. Every month, I wired the bank $400 to pay off my son's loan. Could I see the details of the loan payment? I asked. It's a mortgage with First National Bank. The last payment was made on the 10th of this month, $400. That payment needs to be stopped too. But it's not an automatic transfer. You do it manually every month. Then just make a note that I won't be making that payment again. For my own memory. Mr. Grayson looked at me with some surprise but recorded my request in the client file. Apparently, family financial disputes were not new to him, and he preferred not to ask too many questions. Anything else? He asked. Yes, just one last thing. I need a statement of all accounts for the last 5 years, complete with all transactions. It'll take some time. We can mail or email it within a week. Email, please. I gave him my email address, checked again all the changes I had made, thanked him for his help. Mr. Grayson walked me to the door, wished me a good day. Outside, I felt lighter than I had in a long time. It was as if I'd lifted a heavy weight off my shoulders that I'd been carrying for years. The financial umbilical cord between me and Clive had been cut. My money belonged to me now. I got into the car, but I didn't start the engine right away. I needed to comprehend what I had just done. The joint account was closed, automatic transfers canceled, loan payments stopped. In 1 hour, I had fundamentally altered my financial relationship with my son. Of course, Clive won't realize it right away. The joint account will become his personal account, but the money is no longer there. The monthly transfer simply won't arrive on the 15th. The mortgage payment won't arrive on time. It'll take him a while to realize what's happened. And when he does, he'll probably get angry. He'll call, demand an explanation, accuse me of being cruel and irresponsible. Maybe he'll come in person, try to press the guilt, but I'm ready for that. During the night, I thought a lot about the possible consequences of my decision. Clive might take offense, might stop talking to me, might try to turn Evelyn against me. It's unpleasant, but it's not fatal. At least I'll be honest with myself. No more illusions of marital intimacy bought with money. No more transfers in exchange for occasional calls and formal visits. If Clive wants to communicate with his father, he'll do it unselfishly. And if he doesn't, then so be it. At least I'll know the truth about our relationship, and I'll be able to live my remaining years without spending my last savings to buy my son's love. I started the car and drove home. On the way, I stopped at a supermarket and bought groceries for the week. At the checkout counter, I looked at the amount and thought about the fact that now I spend this money only on myself. It was a strange but pleasant feeling. At home, I brewed coffee and sat in my favorite chair by the window. The morning paper was on the table, but I didn't feel like reading. I just sat and enjoyed the silence, the peace, the feeling of having made the right decision. Tomorrow, Clive and Evelyn would go to the lake. 2 weeks of happy vacation on their own dime. And when they returned, a new reality would be waiting for them. A reality without Dad's remittances and constant financial support. I wonder how they'll cope with that reality. Will they learn to live within their means or find another sponsor? Will they try to rebuild a relationship with me? Or will they give up on their old dad? Time will tell. In the meantime, I can just enjoy my new freedom. It had been 4 days since Clive and Evelyn had gone to the lake. 4 quiet days that I've spent enjoying the peace and quiet. I read books I'd long put off, watched old movies, sorted through pictures of Martha. For the first time in years, I had no obligations to anyone but myself. On Wednesday morning, I was watering the flowers in the garden when the phone rang. Clive's number popped up on the display. I took my time answering it, letting it ring for a few beeps. It was interesting to observe how I felt. My son's calls had made me happy before, but now I felt more wary. "Dad, hi." Clive's voice sounded strained, though he was trying to sound cheerful. "How are you doing? How are you feeling?" "Good," I answered calmly. "How's your vacation going? Is the weather good?" "Yes, it's fine, sunny. The lake is beautiful. Evelyn is sunbathing. I'm fishing. I caught 2 bass yesterday. We'll grill them for dinner tonight." He spoke quickly, excitedly, obviously in a hurry to get to the main issue. I listened and waited for him to gather his courage and say what he was calling for. "Look, Dad, we've got a little problem," Clive said at last. "We were going into town to get groceries today, and my card didn't go through the ATM. It said there weren't enough funds in my account." "That's weird," I said indifferently. "How much money was there supposed to be?" "Well, we were counting on the money in our joint account. Remember, you transferred it last month. It was supposed to be almost 2,500. Our joint account." That's an interesting way of putting it. It's like it was a joint account, even though I was the only one who deposited all the money. Clive never paid a cent into it, only spent what I put into it. "Did you check the balance online?" I asked. "Yes, I went to the bank's website. It shows that the account is empty." "It's empty, Dad." It was as if the money had never been there at all. I could hear the bewilderment in his voice, turning to panic. Clive was used to having money in the joint account, that his father regularly replenished it. Faced with an empty account, he didn't know how to react. "Maybe some sort of technical glitch at the bank?" he suggested hopefully. "It happens sometimes. Remember last year when we had a delayed transfer?" "Maybe," I agreed. "Did you call the bank to find out?" "I did, but they said that all operations were correct, that the money was transferred on the 4th to another account." "Your personal account, Dad." He was silent, waiting for my explanation. I was silent too, wondering how best to present the information. I could tell him the whole truth at once, or I could take it step by step, letting him guess what was going on. "Dad, can you hear me?" Clive asked anxiously. "What happened to the money?" "I transferred it to my account," I said simply. "What do you mean you transferred it? Why?" "What do you need it for?" I asked back. It's my money that I deposited last month. I decided to take it back. But we agreed that the money was for our joint expenses." Clive sounded indignant. "We planned to use it to pay for the trip." "I wonder, when did we agree?" I remember him complaining about not having enough money, and I offered to help. But we didn't talk about the money being for the trip. Clive decided that without asking my opinion. "I don't remember such an arrangement," I said calmly. "You asked for help, I helped. Now I've decided I need the money myself." "But what about us?" Clive was clearly confused. "We've only got money for a few days. We've got a week's vacation left." "So we'll have to go home early," I said indifferently, "or find another source of money." "What other source?" My son sounded hysterical. "Where am I going to get money in the middle of a vacation? That's a good question. Where do normal people get money from? Earn it, save it, plan ahead. But Clive was used to his dad always solving his financial problems, so he hadn't learned how to plan a budget on his own. I don't know, I answered honestly. It's not my problem anymore. Not your problem? Clive couldn't believe what he was hearing. Dad, I'm your son. How can my problems not be your problems? Very simple. You're a grown man, you have a job and a wife who also works. You can handle your problems on your own. But we've always counted on your support. Clive's voice grew higher and more tense. You were the one who offered to help. I did, and I have, for years. Now I've decided to stop. Why? He almost screamed. What happened? What did I do wrong? I wondered if I should explain everything to him in detail, to tell him how I felt after talking about the trip, about my nighttime thoughts, about realizing that our relationship was based only on money, but I decided it was too early. Let her digest the change itself first. You haven't done anything special, I said. I just reassessed my priorities. I decided that my money should be spent on my needs. What needs? Clive asked incredulously. You have everything you need. A house, a car, a pension. I have a lot of plans, I said evasively. I might want to go on vacation, or renovate the house, or put money aside for medical expenses. But we're a family. Clive still couldn't accept the new reality. A family should help each other. Schon. I agree, I said. A family should help each other, mutually. What do you mean reciprocally? Have you ever helped me? I asked bluntly. Financially or otherwise? Clive was silent. I guess he was trying to think of a single time when he'd offered me support. There hadn't been, and we both knew it. Yeah, I thought you didn't need anything, he said finally. You never asked for help. Did you ever wonder if I needed help? I went on. Asked about my problems, my plans, my health. I have. I always ask how I'm doing. You ask formally at the beginning of the conversation, and then you go straight to your problems and request for money. That's not true, Clive was indignant. We talk about everything. Like what? I decided to test his memory. Tell me what you know about my life over the last year. My plans, my problems, my worries. Clive was silent again. A long pause during which he must have realized that he didn't really know anything about me. We were communicating superficially, formally, focusing only on his needs. Dad, I don't understand what this is all about, he said at last, confused. Maybe we can talk when I get back. For now, help us get to the end of our vacation. I promise we'll talk about everything. No, I said firmly. No more help. You're on your own. How are we going to manage? Clive's voice was hysterical again. We haven't got any money. Then I should have planned a vacation to the best of my ability, not to rely on Dad's money. I heard Clive say something to Evelyn, apparently retelling our conversation. Then I heard a woman's voice, agitated and indignant. Evelyn clearly couldn't believe what was happening. Dad, Evelyn wants to talk to you, Clive said. I'm listening, I answered. Chester, hi, it's Evelyn. My sister-in-law's voice sounded strained, but she tried to remain polite. Clive told me about the money problems. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, I said calmly. It's exactly as I explained to Clive. But we can't have no money in the middle of a vacation. There were tears in Evelyn's voice. We have to pay for the cabin tomorrow, the day after that for the boat. We've already planned everything. You should have planned based on your own income, I replied, and not rely on other people's money. Other people's money? Evelyn couldn't believe what she was hearing. But you're a family. A family helps each other. Family helps, I agreed. But help should be mutual and voluntary. What we have here is a one-way flow of money. We've always been grateful to you, Evelyn exclaimed. We've never taken your help for granted. Really? I questioned. Then why was Clive planning to spend money from the joint account without asking my opinion? But you gave us that money last month. So I gave it to Clive for current expenses, not for a vacation. And it wasn't permanent, it was temporary. Evelyn was silent, apparently digesting my words. Then she spoke again, in a more conciliatory tone. Chester, let's discuss this calmly. If we were wrong about something, we're ready to fix it. But help us finish our vacation normally. No, I repeated. There will be no more help. But how will we get home? Evelyn's voice was panicked again. We only have enough money for gas. So you'll drive home on gas, or you'll find another way to solve the problem. What other way? She obviously didn't know what to do in this situation. I don't know. Borrow from friends, take out a loan, sell something. People somehow manage to get by financially without help. Chester, please. Evelyn started crying. Akinnia, we're not your enemies, we're your family. A family that only remembers I exist when you need money, I said harshly. A family that plans vacations without me, but at my expense. We weren't planning a vacation at your expense, Evelyn objected. We just thought the money in the joint account could be spent. We could, but we had to ask the other account holder for permission first. Evelyn was silent again. Then she asked to put Clive on the phone. I could hear them talking in whispers, making plans, trying to find a way out of the situation. Dad, Clive said again in a calmer tone. All right, we understand your position, but tell us honestly, is this the final decision, or are you just trying to teach us a lesson? Final decision, I answered without hesitation. No more money transfers, no more loans, no more paying your bills. What about the mortgage? Clive asked anxiously. You used to help us with the monthly payments. Not anymore. You'll have to make the next payment yourself. But we can't! Clive's voice broke into a shout. We don't have enough money to make the full payment. Then go to the bank, renegotiate the terms of the loan, or look for additional sources of income. Shamuro, what sources of income? We both work, so work more, or spend less, or sell the house and buy something cheaper. Clive let out a sort of groan of despair. Apparently it had finally dawned on him that Dad was serious, that the money tap was indeed shut off for good. Dad, you can't do this to us, he said in a shaky voice. We are your family. You have no right to leave us unsupported. I do, I said calmly, and I already have. You can live any way you want now, but without my money. But why? Clive was shouting again. Why are you punishing us? I'm not punishing anyone, I replied. I'm just stopping sponsoring your life. Can you tell the difference? The connection went dead. Clive hung up without saying goodbye. I looked at the phone and smiled. The conversation had gone exactly as I'd expected. Shock, bewilderment, attempts to press pity, threats, all the classic pattern. Now they'll have to solve their problems on their own. I wonder what they'll do. Will they go home early or find a way to get money? And most importantly, how will their attitude towards me change after this lesson in reality? Half an hour later, the phone rang again. I was just finishing breakfast and took my time answering it. I let it ring a few rings, finished my coffee leisurely, wiped my hands with a napkin. Only then he picked up the phone. Dad, it's me again. Clive's voice sounded more collected, but with a barely restrained rage in it. We've been talking to Evelyn, and we've decided to talk to you again. Maybe we misunderstood something in the first conversation. You got it right, I said calmly. There will be no more money from me. Listen, Dad. Clive was clearly trying to control himself, speaking slowly and clearly. I understand that you're upset about something. Maybe we were wrong about something. But you can't make such drastic decisions in the heat of the moment. I didn't decide anything in haste, I objected. I thought about it for days. I weighed the pros and cons. The decision is deliberate and final. A few days? Clive sounded puzzled. Sorona, but what happened a few days ago? We had a normal conversation before we left. Yes, we did. I poured myself another cup of coffee, made myself comfortable in the chair. You were telling me about the trip, explaining why I wasn't invited. Do you remember that conversation? Of course I do. What was so scary about it? I just honestly explained that we needed some time alone together. Honestly? I questioned you. Manu was room, or did you just find pretty words to tell the old man that he wasn't needed? Dad, you don't say. Clive tried to act indignant. We didn't mean to offend you. It's just that a young couple really needs time alone. A young couple that's been together for 8 years, I said. I wondered how long it would take for you to feel like a family. 8 more years? 16? Hono Retin. What's that got to do with it? Clive was beginning to lose his patience. We don't have to take you on every trip. We don't have to, I agreed. But you could at least suggest it. Ask my opinion. Show some common courtesy. We knew you'd say no. You always turn down our invitations. Because you're inviting me out of courtesy, not because you want my company. I took a sip of coffee. By the way, it's easy to feel the difference. That's not true, Clive was indignant. We are always happy to see you. Happy to see my money, I corrected him, and you put up with me for the sake of propriety. How can you say that? There was resentment in Clive's voice. We're family. We love you. Family, I said thoughtfully. Tell me, son, when was the last time you took an interest in my affairs? Not formally at the beginning of the conversation, but really? I'm always interested in your affairs. Then answer a few questions, I suggested. What am I reading lately? What am I thinking about? What are my plans? What's bothering me? Clive fell silent. A long pause during which he apparently realized that he didn't know the answers to these simple questions. You never talk about these things, he murmured at last. Do you ask? I continued. Are you interested in my life, or do you go straight to your own problems? I didn't think you had any problems, Clive defended himself. You always said everything was fine, because you didn't want to hear anything else. I stood up, walked to the window. It's convenient to think the old dad's doing all right, isn't it? You don't have to waste time listening to complaints and worries. I'm ready to listen to your problems, Clive declared fervently. Tell me what's bothering you. It's too late for that now, I said indifferently. You're only willing to listen now because you want your financial support back. That's not true. I really want to know what's going on with you. Okay, I decided to test his sincerity. Then listen carefully. I have arthritis in my knees and the doctor's recommending surgery. Expensive surgery that's not partially covered by insurance. Oh, Dad. Clive gave me a sympathetic look. Why didn't you tell me this before? Of course we'll help pay for it. Will you? I grinned. With what? You don't even have money for your own vacation. Well, we'll figure something out. We'll borrow, save money. No need, I interrupted. I can manage on my own. I have savings. Then what's the problem? Clive didn't understand. Nah, if you have money, why can't you help us? That's it. The main question finally came out in the open. Clive wasn't interested in my surgery or my health. All he cared about was that Dad's savings weren't being spent on him. Because it's my money, I answered simply. And I have the right to spend it as I see fit. But we're your family, Clive started again. A family should help each other. I agree. A family should help each other. I sat back in my chair. What have you done for me in the last few years? What do you mean? Yeah, Clive was clearly struggling to remember anything. We visit you. We call. We talk. You visit once a month, I clarified, when you need money. And you call for the same reason. That's not true. Then remember your last call, which wasn't about asking for help. Clive was silent again. We both knew there had been no such call. All our communication in recent years had revolved around his financial problems. Look, Dad, he said in a different tone, more conciliatory. Maybe we really have been negligent. Maybe we've been too reliant on your support, but it can be fixed. It can be fixed, I agreed. Start fixing it. How? Clive got excited. What should we do? First, learn to live on your own money, without my help. And then, when will we learn? Then we'll see, I answered evasively. Maybe we'll be able to build a normal family relationship. But why can't you help us? Clive insisted. It's cruel to cut off funding abruptly. And to gradually accustom a grown man to independence? What is it? I asked. You're 38 years old, Clive. At your age, you should be helping your parents, not begging them for money. We're not begging, he was indignant. We're asking for support in times of need. You've been going through hard times for 5 years, I said. I wonder when they will end. We are living in a difficult economic situation, Clive began to justify himself. Salaries aren't going up and prices are going up. Young families are having a hard time. Other young families are having a hard time too, I argued, but they manage without their parents' help. They work more, spend less, and don't live beyond their means. We don't live beyond our means. Then where does the constant lack of money come from? I asked logically. If your income covers your expenses, why do you need my help? Clive hesitated again. The logic was ironclad, and it was hard to argue with it. It's just that sometimes there are unexpected expenses, he murmured at last. Breakdowns, illnesses, urgent purchases. Everyone has unexpected expenses, I replied. That's why you have an emergency fund. You put money aside for a rainy day. But how can we save if we can barely make ends meet? So we need to rethink our lifestyle. Spend less on entertainment, clothes, restaurants. But we're not robots. Clive was indignant. We have a right to a normal life. Yes, you do, but with your money, not mine. Clive made a sound like a growl. He must have run out of arguments and was getting ready to move on to another tactic. You know what, Dad, he said coldly. You're no saint either. How many years have you helped us financially? I did it of my own free will. No one forced you to do it. Yes, I have, I agreed. What does that mean? That you've made it a habit of supporting us. Clive's voice was getting more and more aggressive. You created this dependency, and now all of a sudden you want to change it. I did, I confirmed. Better late than never. But that's despicable, Clive exploded. You can't get people used to helping you and then stop it abruptly. Why not? I wondered. My help was never an obligation. I gave money voluntarily, and I can stop it voluntarily too. We have obligations, loans, payments. We planned our budget with your support in mind. You shouldn't have, I replied without sympathy. You can't include someone else's money in your plans without consulting the owner. You're our father, Clive shouted. Fathers help their children. It's natural. Someone rain. Fathers help children get back on their feet, I corrected him. They don't support grown men for the rest of their lives. We'll give you all your money back. Clive started haggling. As soon as we're back on our feet, we'll pay you back. When will that be? I asked. A year from now. 5 years? 10 years? I don't know for sure, but we will. There's no need to return anything, I said tiredly. Just live on your own, without my money. What if we can't? There was fear in Clive's voice. What if we lose the house? What if Evelyn gets sick and there's no money for treatment? Then we'll go to social services, or friends, or Evelyn's parents. There's lots of options. Evelyn's parents can't help. They can barely live. And I'm obliged to help, I concluded, because I have money. You're our father, Clive said again. You're supposed to take care of us. Mashkan. I have for 38 years, I replied calmly. I think that's enough. Clive was silent. Then I heard him say something to Evelyn in a muffled voice. Apparently she was giving him advice on how to talk to me. Daddy, he said again, in a different tone of voice. Okay, let's say you're right. Let's say we did rely on your help too much. But give us time to rebuild. You can't change everything in one day. Yes, I said, and we must. Gradual change takes years. Then I don't know what to do, Clive said confused. Honestly, Dad, I'm panicking. That's good, I approved. Panic makes you act, to look for solutions instead of waiting for outside help. What solutions? Clive almost whispered. I don't even know where to start. Akram, start by having an honest conversation with Evelyn about your income and expenses. Make a budget. Eliminate unnecessary spending. Think about extra income. And if it's not enough, then sell the house and buy something cheaper. Move to a cheaper neighborhood. Change your lifestyle. But we're used to a certain level, Clive moaned. Then earn that level yourself, I advised. In the meantime, make do with what you can afford. The connection went dead again. Clive hung up the phone, slamming it down harder this time. I looked at the phone and shook my head. The son clearly hadn't expected that Dad could be so rigid and unyielding. But toughness had nothing to do with it. I just stopped playing a game whose rules didn't suit me. I stopped buying the illusion of marital intimacy with my money. Clive and Evelyn returned from their trip on Monday night, 5 days ahead of schedule. I found out by accident. I saw their car in the driveway when I went out to the mailbox. They had apparently stopped by the house to unload their stuff and then decided to come straight to my house for an explanation. I was not surprised to see them. After the last phone conversation, I expected them to try to talk in person. The phone conversations had failed, so the next step would be a visit to try to push my emotions. They did not knock on the door, but immediately rang the bell. Long, insistent, as if demanding an immediate audience. I didn't hurry to open the door, but looked through the peephole first. Clive was in front, Evelyn a little behind. Both looked tired, frustrated, but determined. "Hi," I said, opening the door. "How was your trip?" "Nachkanunam." "Fine," Clive mumbled, walking into the house. "We need to talk." "Come into the kitchen," I said. "Do you want coffee?" "I don't want coffee," Clive said. "I need an explanation." We went into the kitchen and sat down at the table. I sat in my usual place, and they sat across from me. Evelyn looked like she'd been crying in the car on the way over. Clive was clenching his fists, clearly struggling to contain his anger. "Dad," he began slowly, minting each word. "Explain to me, please, what the hell is going on? Why did you suddenly decide to leave us without money in the middle of a vacation?" "I already explained it on the phone," I answered calmly. "I decided to cut off financial support." "But why now?" Evelyn intervened. "What did we do? What's our fault?" "It's not really my fault," I said honestly. "I just realized that our relationship wasn't right." "Wrong?" Clive jumped up and down in his chair. "What's right? Do you think it's right to abandon your family in a time of need?" "I didn't abandon anyone," I countered. "I stopped funding you. That's different." "It's the same thing to us," Evelyn exclaimed. "We're used to your support. We counted on it." "We didn't count on it," I replied indifferently. "I did not give any guarantees of constant help." "But you offered," Clive reminded me. "You said you wanted to help us." "I did. And I did. For years. Now I've decided to stop." "Why?" Evelyn leaned forward, trying to look me in the eye. "Chester, tell me honestly, why are you doing this to us?" I looked at both of them, a young couple who genuinely don't understand what's going on. They were really used to my help, taking it as something natural and constant. My decision came as a blow to them that they were completely unprepared for. "Remember our last trip as a family?" I asked Clive. "What trip?" "Any trip. When was the last time we went on vacation together?" Clive thought for a moment, trying to remember. Evelyn was silent too. "I don't remember a trip like that," Clive finally admitted. "Here, we always went separately." "Exactly," I nodded. "And why?" "Well, we have different interests, different plans. And also because I'm a nuisance to you," I added. "An old man who spoils the mood of the young company." "That's not true," Evelyn was indignant. "We never thought so." "Then why didn't you invite me to the lake?" "We explained." Clive was getting annoyed. "We needed time alone together." "For my money," I clarified. "You wanted time alone for my money." "What does that have to do with your money?" Clive didn't understand. What were you planning to use to pay for the trip?" I asked bluntly. Clive and Evelyn looked at each other. I guess they finally understood what I was talking about. "With money from the joint account," Clive admitted quietly. "My money," I summarized. "You were planning a romantic vacation without me, but at my expense." "But you gave us that money last month," Evelyn tried to justify herself. "We thought it was ours, and I considered them a loan for current expenses, not a vacation gift." "You never said it was a loan," Clive was indignant. "You never demanded repayment, because I hoped you'd realize the difference between help and maintenance." Clive got up from the table and started pacing around the kitchen. Apparently, he needed movement to deal with his emotions. "All right," he said at last. "Let's say we were wrong. Let's say we relied too much on your help. But we can fix it, can't we?" "It can be fixed," I agreed. "Fix it. And while we're fixing it, can you help us?" Evelyn asked hopefully. "One last time?" "No," I answered firmly. "There will be no last time. Shinley." "But we can't change our whole lives at once," Clive exclaimed. "We need time." "You have time," I said. "The money ran out at once, but there will always be time." "Dad, you don't understand." Clive stopped in front of me. "We have loans, obligations. We could lose the house, then sell it and buy something cheaper. And where are we going to live while we look for a new place? Get an apartment. Stay with friends. Move in with Evelyn's parents." "Evelyn's parents live in a small apartment," Clive objected. "There's no room for us." "Then find another solution," I said indifferently. "That's your problem, not mine." Evelyn suddenly started to cry, quietly without sobbing, just tears running down her cheeks. Chester, she whispered, don't you care what happens to us? No, I do care, I admitted. I'm Uwena, but I won't solve your problems with money anymore. Then how? Clive asked. What do you suggest? Advice, I answered. I can give advice. But money, no. What kind of advice? Clive grinned bitterly. Work more, spend less? We already know that. Then do it, I said. There's a difference between knowing and doing. What if we can't do it? Evelyn asked quietly. What if we fail? Then you'll have to cope in some other way, I answered. People survive in the worst situations. Clive sat down at the table again. His face was grim, his hands clenched into fists. You know what, Dad? He said coldly. You're just abandoning us. You say nice things about being on your own, but in reality, you're just abandoning the family. I'm giving up the illusion of a family, I corrected him. A family that exists only because of my money. Sadi, what do you mean? I mean that if you take the financial component out of our relationship, what's left? I asked bluntly. When was the last time you called me for nothing? When you came over without asking for money? Clive was silent, unable to find an answer. You see, I continued, our communication has long since been reduced to your requests and my transfers. There's no family here. But we can change that, Evelyn intervened. We'll communicate more, we'll visit more often. For money? I clarified. You'll come for money and socialize at the same time? No, just for fun. We'll see, I answered skeptically. When the money runs out, we'll see how often you'll come just for fun. You're the one who got us used to it, Clive exclaimed. You're the one who offered to help. I did, I agreed. My mistake. Now I'm fixing it. You're being cruel, Evelyn said bitterly. Better cruel than nothing, I replied philosophically. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Clive was staring out the window, and Evelyn was wiping her tears with a tissue. I watched them and thought about the fact that this might be the last time we'd ever talk as a family. Dad, Clive finally said, what if we really changed? Become independent, learn to live without your help. Would you forgive us then? I have nothing to forgive you for, I said. You didn't do anything wrong. You just accepted what I offered. Then what? Can we repair the relationship? I don't know, I said honestly. Time will tell. What will it take for you to start trusting us again? Learn to live without my money, I answered, and communicate with me not because you need something, but because you are really interested. And if it works, Evelyn asked hopefully, if we prove that we've changed, then maybe we could build a normal family relationship, I said cautiously. A relationship based on mutual interest, or not money. Clive and Evelyn looked at each other. I saw something like determination in their eyes. Okay, Clive said firmly. We'll give it a try. We'll try to make it on our own. Hongwag, I wish you luck, I said sincerely. And you? Will you wait for us? Evelyn asked uncertainly. I'll live my life, I said honestly, and then we'll see. They got up from the table. Clive came over to me and gave me a sudden hug. It was the first time in years that he'd hugged me for no reason at all. We're sorry, Dad, he said quietly. We really didn't understand what was going on. It's okay, I replied, responding to the hug. The important thing is that you understand now. Evelyn came over and kissed me on the cheek. We'll get through this, she said with a tremor in her voice. We will. I don't doubt it, I said. I walked them to the door. They got into the car and drove away, waving goodbye. I stood on the porch watching them, wondering if I would ever see them again. And if I do, what kind of adults they will be. Independent adults or the same dependent children looking for a new sponsor. Time would tell. In the meantime, I could finally live for myself without feeling obligated to save someone else's life with my money. For the first time in years, I was truly free.